My concern is very simple. I'm a doctor. I get upset when people get sick for no fault of their own. And these big inequalities in social conditions lead to dramatic inequalities in illness, in length of life, and in quality of life.
Digital skills, access to artificial intelligence could lead to a new type of inequality that he speaks about, which is not so much income inequality, but access to technological advance inequality, where a group of people will just simply be left behind because they will not have the incomes to enable themselves to take advantage of the sort of digital future. So although at the moment you can possibly be quite sanguine on income terms and household terms about inequality in terms of it not growing, and particularly in a household sense, because there are now many fewer workless households in the UK than there were. Many more women are now working, and actual household inequality and inequality for women has actually slightly decreased. It doesn't mean that inequality is not a problem, or that the anger is not real and justified. But it just gives us a sense that it may not be the economics that is the problem, but it is the policies we put in place that mean that people get such different outcomes dependent on the wealth of the postcode they come from.
The response to the financial crisis essentially was to try and prop up asset prices to stop them falling. And that's because, as we saw in the 1930s, when asset prices go into free fall, actually everybody suffers. Economies can become very damaged very quickly. And I concluded in the book that it was actually a reasonable response. Where I think we went wrong was after that, when we decided that what we needed to do in order to fix our economies was carrying on pouring money into assets, into asset prices, as we had been in the immediate aftermath of the crisis, but we carried on doing that for a very long time, while simultaneously withdrawing money from the economy, and in particular from the poorest parts of society, which economically didn't make a great deal of sense, because actually the people with the least money are the most likely to spend it if you give it to them. So if you actually want to raise aggregate demand, giving poorer people money makes a fair degree of sense.
I live in Nairobi, and Kenya has one of the greatest sort of inequality rates. And as a result, you have people who don't have access to education, or access to health, or access to very basic things. And then you have the people who are making the decisions, who are being funded by the people who are at the top. And they make decisions and create policies that pander to their concerns that are not necessarily concerns, for sure, not the concerns. So we have a system, for instance, I'm involved a lot in peripheral web, in education, and what I see there is just so ridiculously unfair. You have sort of 70% of the population going to very low-cost schools, so government schools. And the quality of education is such that something like 25% of the kids coming out of standard 7, which is sort of 12-year-olds, are reading at 6-year-old levels. You know, it's just really terrible. But there's no attention being paid to that. You think it's at least I think it's a crisis. And the reason is because everybody who's making decisions, you know, around education is not effective. Their kids are not going to schools like that. You know, we have our members of parliament going to hospitals here in London, you know, so they're not bothered about how to, you know, take care. They're not prioritizing building our hospitals, etc. So I think inequality it's evil, actually.